The world is God at play. The world is God acting. Now, how could you possibly arrive at such an idea? Very simply.
I put it between the physical and astral. Yeah. The feeling between was critical and natural for cosmic creatures in the wild. This is souls to bridge a gap between what is real and spiritual, divine, masculine and feminine. Yeah. Elevating knowledge in abundance for my specimen. Lot of teams to discuss for a while. Make it tantric and vow. This is cosmic and wild. Yeah. Elevating knowledge in abundance for my specimen. Lot of teams to discuss for a while. This is cosmic and wild.
Hello everyone and welcome to Cosmic and Wild. I'm your host, ALLEE Wild, and I am so stoked to have you here. Thank you for being here. I have had this podcast on my heart, on my mind, on my soul for years now, and I can't believe that it's finally here. I decided for the first month of the podcast to do solo episodes. I really wanted to set the tone and the vibe for each section, Cosmic, Wild, and Human, to really give you guys a feel for what each is going to offer as we move forward. We will be doing interviews starting in June. I have some great people lined up, so I can't wait to share all of that with you. In the first installment of our Cosmic series, I dive into my spiritual journey, how 2 years of shadow work changed my life, and how to get started exploring this space, including my favorite healing modalities. We're going to talk about past life regression, tarot, astrology, Reiki, crystal therapy, and even how to access the Akashic Records. I hope you all enjoy this episode as much as I enjoyed recording it for you. I'll see you in there. Hey everyone, welcome to the very first episode of Cosmic and Wild. I am so stoked to be recording this episode. This is the first installment of our Cosmic series, and we're going to cover a lot today. I'm going to talk a little bit about my spiritual journey and the different modalities that are available. And basically, I just want this episode to kind of be like an intro or like a 101 course on spirituality, and just to kind of help anyone that's just starting to dip their toes into the space to understand what modalities are available to them and kind of just give you a little insight on where to start. Because these days, so many of us are waking up and are turning to spirituality in our own ways for healing and for expansion and for growth. And there's so much information out there. It can be crazy and overwhelming, and there's a lot of misinformation, and it's pretty much just like the Wild West right now. Like, a lot of people are coming up with their own modalities. Like, it's just crazy, and it's so cool, and it's an amazing space to be in right now. And honestly, I think everyone can relate to it in their own way. It's really just a matter of figuring out what works for you, what makes sense to you, and what aligns with your vision, your values, and your beliefs. So I want to start by kind of talking about my experience, my personal, I guess you could say, spiritual awakening that really started around 2018. At this point, I had spent a couple years traveling the US, road tripping, being in nature, and honestly, nature was really what reconnected me to my spirituality. I was raised in a Catholic family, so I did have organized religion in my life. And because of that, I knew I was spiritual. I knew that there was more out there. I knew that I was connected to some kind of energy or force of the universe. I just didn't really know what that was. And I didn't really know how to begin in discovering what that was. I just knew that I had to start somewhere. And so I had just moved back from LA to the East Coast. I needed a break. I had been working in bars for years and just really caught up in that life. And I wanted to slow down. I wanted to get my health on track. I had been really sick for a while. I had a lot of stomach issues going on. And I, through process of elimination, figured out that I was allergic to gluten and to dairy. And so when I moved back, the first thing that I did was I went completely gluten-free and vegan. And it was wild. Like, my body completely changed. My skin got better. I lost a lot of inflammation in my body. My whole internal part of my body healed, and I got healthier. And it took a while. It took months really to start to see these changes because it had been years of accidentally poisoning my body with stuff that it didn't want. I just didn't know any better. But that was kind of crazy. And diet is spiritual. Diet is our fuel. Like what we put in our body is the energy that we're giving our body to run on, and our brain to run on, and even our soul to run on. And so I kind of realized during this time how important it was to really be cognizant of what I was putting in my body. And as I started that journey, it kind of grew into more and more ways of wellness. So I started really being active in the gym. I had a pretty solid yoga practice at this point. Yoga's been a huge influence in my life, but I started going to the gym as well and working out and biking all the time, and really just like giving my body what it needed. I started really listening to my body and honoring it. And when I felt like I wanted to eat, I ate. If I didn't feel like eating, I didn't eat. Like obviously I made sure that I got the sustenance that I needed, but I really flowed with the innate wisdom of my body and listened to what my body was telling me, probably for the first time really in my life. And so I started feeling so much better. My mind got clearer. I started not needing as much coffee, or I think there was even a period where I gave up coffee altogether, which is crazy for me because I love my coffee. It's such a ritual for me, but I did actually give it up for a little while. And yeah, I just noticed all of these changes in like my physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. And going through this process, I started to create more systems in my life, more rituals in my life. I started journaling regularly. I had journaled. I've been journaling for most of my life, like pretty much since I was a kid. But I really created like a actual journaling practice. I created this acronym called Gaia, and it stands for gratitudes, affirmations, intentions, and attractions. And I don't know, it just like came to me one day and I was like, oh, this is perfect. Like, this is how I want to start my day. This kind of covers all the bases and keeps me, aligned with my vision, but also grateful for what I have right now, and helps me kind of set intentions for my day. So I started practicing that on a regular basis. I started meditating regularly, and I started doing a lot of research. I started researching all these different modalities, like what is spirituality. This was the time when I first discovered tarot, which I was blown away by. I'll talk more about tarot later on, but just to give you guys a little insight, the first video on YouTube that I ever watched, my friend sent to me, and I think it was for Taurus for the month of April or something like that. And it was a general reading, but this woman was speaking to me. Like, I was blown away by what she was saying. This woman who has no idea who I am, who lives who knows where in the world, was literally touching all of these points of my life that were changing, and giving this valuable insight and helping me reframe where I was at. And I was just like, holy shit, like, this is crazy. Like, how does she know this? Like, and after that, I was like down the rabbit hole. I was like, got super into tarot. I got my first tarot deck. I started learning everything I could about that. I started watching a lot of videos on YouTube about spirituality. I signed up for this. Basically, it's a spiritual Netflix called Gaia. Some of you guys might be familiar with it. They have a lot of great documentaries and series and all kinds of awesome information on there. So if you are looking for somewhere to start, that could be a really good place. But I just dove right in, and honestly, like, pretty quickly, I got very overwhelmed. I was like, I got my Reiki 1 certification, which was a really powerful experience, but there was Reiki, there was crystals, there was astrology, there was all these different modalities, and I was like overwhelmed by how much information there was. And I was like, how am I ever going to learn all of this? Like, I didn't even know what was going to work for me. Like, it was just this whole like kind of holy shit moment where I was like, what did I just get myself into? But I just kept moving forward. I kept up with my practices, and like slowly but surely I started learning everything that I, had interest in, and pursuing more of what I became interested in. And that was tarot, that was Reiki, that was crystals. Later on down the line, I got interested in past life regression and hypnotherapy, which I'll also talk a little bit about today. But yeah, I just kind of started figuring out what resonated with me and what didn't. And started integrating the practices that felt most resonant with me, because I realized I got to a point where I was like very overwhelmed, and I was like, okay, how do I make this work for me and not against me? And so I started kind of picking and choosing what modalities made the most sense, what felt good at this time, knowing I could come back to other ones in the future, and kind of just started with what felt good. So I think that's a really good point to make, is see what your intuition sparks in you. See what, the first thing that kind of sparks your interest, and explore that. And if it feels good, keep exploring it. And if it doesn't feel like it resonates right now, then put it on the back burner and try something else. You don't have to take everything on all at once. So over the next probably year or two, I kept up with kind of my basic practices, but I became really involved in my career. I went full-time freelance as a travel photographer, and I got kind of really caught up in the hustle of building my own business, and I was traveling all the time, and I didn't really get to do as much exploration. Fast forward to 2020, we all know how that went. Oh my God, like what a year. So I started off that year with the plan, jokes on me, of spending the entire year of 2020 traveling internationally. So I had moved all my stuff back from my apartment in Tahoe. I had loved living in Tahoe, but I had an apartment and I was traveling all the time. It didn't really make sense to keep paying rent when all I wanted to be doing was travel. So I moved my stuff back to the East Coast where my family is, and I booked my first trip to Costa Rica. It was absolutely incredible. I went to Envision, which is this amazing sustainable music festival down in Costa Rica. I explored a lot. I saw the jungle. I saw the ocean. I was in nature. I took yoga classes. Came back feeling so connected. And while I was there, my mom and my sister kept texting me, and they're like, "Hey, Allie, we're really worried about this pandemic thing. Like, we think you should come home." And mind you, like, I was off the grid. Like, I was not on my phone. I was definitely not looking at the news. And I'm thinking to myself, like, "Oh, it's fine. Like, it's probably like the swine flu and the bird flu and all the other flus. Like, it's no big deal." Well, 3 days after I got back from Costa Rica, we were in full lockdown, and I was like, "Oh no." This is happening. Like, this is real. And you know how in the beginning they were like, "Oh, give it 2 weeks. Like, oh, give it another 2 weeks. It'll clear up. It'll be fine." So I'm now stuck at my parents, and I'm like, okay, like a couple more weeks and I can travel again. A couple more weeks. I had all these plans. I was going to go to Bali and get yoga certified. I was going to go back to Europe because I hadn't been in about 10 years. All of these plans eventually, obviously, out the window. I ended up getting an apartment and just having to settle down for a bit and realize, the reality of where we were. And this was kind of the beginning of, honestly, the hardest 2 years of my entire life. And this is when the spirituality got real. This is when I really started doing shadow work. And so shadow work is actually going to be a really key theme throughout this podcast. It's super important to me. I really think it should be super important to everyone. And I think it's something that's not as well understood and not talked about enough in the spirituality community. Everyone's talking about affirmations. They're talking about meditation. They're talking about journaling. They're talking about all this stuff. And like, yes, that stuff is great. It's incredible. But you can do all of that and still be spiritual bypassing. And what I mean by that is, like, you could be showing up for the yoga and showing up for the journaling and showing up for all of that. But unless you're really doing the work, doing the internal work, you're not going to experience the progress and the manifestations and the growth and expansion that you're really meant here to experience. So this is where my shadow work journey really started. I think we do shadow work throughout our lives without realizing it, but this is where it really became unavoidable for me. A lot of heavy stuff happened. I lost my entire travel photography career to the pandemic. I had to completely pivot. I had to start pretty much from scratch. And so I actually started getting into copywriting, marketing, digital art, and a lot of other stuff. And I threw myself into all these courses and really started learning a lot. But I also started learning more spiritual modalities. So I got past life regression certified, which I'll talk a little bit more about later. I got Reiki certified. I started taking courses on astrology and crystals. and really just started exploring what the capacity of these modalities to heal us. Now, at the same time, it was a pandemic. I was living essentially in the middle of nowhere. I had got an apartment through a friend of a friend, and it was a beautiful interior. It was like checked all my boxes as far as like what the inside of my space should be and what I wanted from a space. But it was in the middle of nowhere, upstate New York. I was very isolated. I was still probably an hour and a half from my family. And it was really hard being alone all the time. I didn't really have a lot of friends in the area. Most of my friends were out west, and I started really struggling, and I got incredibly depressed. My anxiety was through the roof, and I started drinking a lot, and I've struggled with drinking for most of my 20s. Like I said, I used to work in bars. I was living in LA where the party culture is like top notch. And it was really hard to manage that. And at the time, I didn't really think I had a problem because it's just what everyone did. But when I was home alone in my apartment and realized that I was regularly drinking to handle my depression, handle my anxiety, handle the fact that I had lost everything, and I didn't know what my life was going to be. And it was just this really dark period where I struggled for a really long time. I did end up getting sober in February of 2021. I was sober for about 9 months of 2021, which was a game changer for me. I'll talk about that probably more on another episode as well. But yeah, I got sober, and I started going to therapy. I started doing, the things that I needed to do to pull myself out of that space. And I was starting to do pretty well until a couple months after that, probably around May of 2021, I got in a really serious car accident. And at the time, my adrenaline was pumping. I didn't want to go to the hospital. I thought I was fine. And in the coming weeks, I realized that I was very not fine. I was not okay. I had a really serious concussion. I had really bad whiplash. My entire body was in pain. I had horrific vertigo. So I started not being able to look at a computer screen, look at a phone screen, look at the TV without getting really sick. I couldn't sit up or lay down or stand up or move around without getting crazy nauseous. And it really was detrimental to my health. I lost my job because of it. One of many jobs that I had lost at this point because of the pandemic, which was a really big hit to me. It was a company that I loved working for, and I was super stoked to be moving forward with them. Lost that, lost my ability to do yoga. I couldn't hike. I couldn't really even hardly go for walks outside. I was pretty much stuck on the couch, and it got really gnarly. Like I was not okay. And I started kind of getting lost in the darkness that I was in, and really not knowing what to do about it. I had been doing therapy. I had been doing journaling. I felt like I was doing all of the things, everything that they say, meditating, even dancing, like everything that I could do. At the time I wasn't really dancing as much because I was physically impaired, but like I was really trying to do everything that I could do to get back to a good place, and nothing was working. At this point, summer was ending. It was starting to get cold again. I couldn't believe that we were going into another winter. I felt like we had just gotten out of winter, and it was really scary. I lost a lot. I lost friends. I lost, obviously my work. I had nothing. All the things that I had enjoyed were gone, and I was pretty much just stuck with myself. And at the time, I had no idea that was about to be one of the most transformative moments of my entire life. I couldn't see it at the time. Now I can, thankfully. But what happened was that I really kind of hit a wall where my anxiety was so bad. I literally couldn't leave the house. I had gotten a part-time job working at a farm stand because it was the only thing that I could do physically that wasn't physically taxing on me, but didn't require me to be on a computer. So I had a part-time work with that, but it really threw me off not having work. Like I've been working since I was old enough to work. I've always had multiple jobs. I love work. I'm a little bit of an workaholic to a fault, but I also love working. You know, I love always having projects, and I'm always, you know, exploring new interests and all of this. And I couldn't do any of that. And I actually ended up having this epiphany in that moment where I was in such a dark place, and I was reflecting, and I was like, why am I mean, obviously a lot of bad stuff happened. I mean, it was like a horrific year. I got attacked by dogs twice on my property. I had like numerous things happen, like just horrible things. There's a period of time where it was almost every other week something pretty traumatic would happen, and I was like, what the hell is going on? Like, this is crazy. Like, where's the lesson in this? Like, why is the universe just like raining down on me relentlessly? So I started reflecting, and I realized one of many epiphanies that I had at this time was that I had placed 100% of my self-worth into my productivity, into my success, into my career. And I really didn't know who I was outside of that. I had always been working on building my business. I had always been working on, you know, multiple side gigs and side hustles and other jobs, and not really leaving enough space for myself as a person, and certainly not valuing myself as a person. And it seems simple, but this mindset shift changed everything for me. Absolutely everything for me. From this point, I started experiencing a level of self-compassion that I had never been able to give myself before. And I really came to terms with where I was at. I kind of just decided to accept, hey, you know what? This shit sucks right now. Like, honestly, like, this is not great. Like, I really don't want to be here. This is not fun. Like, there's not really much to look forward to. I didn't know what my future looked like. I didn't know when I was going to get better. And I was like, you know what? It is what it is. It is what it is. Like, this is where I'm at right now. I have to trust that things are going to turn around, but I can't keep fighting it. I can't keep fighting it. And this is when I finally started to integrate my shadow. When I finally accepted where I was at, stopped trying to fight it, and found peace with the place that I was in, knowing that it wouldn't last forever, everything shifted. It was slow, but it happened. And I started noticing, you know, my mindset getting better. I started feeling better. By December, I was physically well enough to get back to yoga. And that was a huge game changer for me. Yoga has saved my life more times than once. And that really helped me a lot. And so I was getting to be physically active again. I was connecting back to my mind, my body, my soul. And in January, probably right after the new year, I actually did this incredible energy healing with this woman, Andrea. She's incredible. I can link her in the show notes for you guys to check her out. We did an energy healing that cleansed all my chakras, like cleared everything out, really just cleared out a lot of the heaviness. And between that and the journaling and the shadow work that I was doing, I was journaling regularly. I was processing my emotions. I was getting really clear on why I felt I had gone through the things that I did and what I wanted to do differently. Much of that being work-life balance, finding my own sense of self outside of work, taking care of myself, and honestly just pursuing like a holistically healthy life and what that looks like for me. And once I established those basic needs, like I really got back to basics. I was like, because I was seriously depressed. Like brushing my teeth and showering was hard. And I just started to day by day get back on top of, you know, everyday self-care, cooking myself good food, like really just getting back to basics. And I really felt a massive shift in January, and I started getting clients again. I started being able to work again. The computer wasn't bothering me as much. I had gone to physical therapy for my body and for my vertigo. And so I was at this point in a much better place, thankfully. But yeah, I started working again, and I just realized, I was like, wow, like when I found peace with where I was at, I was finally able to move forward. When I got really honest, like radically honest with myself and what I needed, everything started to change. And that's when the healing started. And step by step, day by day, integrating that shadow, all along the way. Sorry, I did not mean to rhyme right there, but doing all of that, taking all of those steps and allowing my process to be what it was, I honestly made like a quantum leap. Come January and February, I was working again. I was building up my career again. I booked a trip out west. I spent 5 weeks visiting all my friends that I hadn't seen since the pandemic. I went to Tahoe, Denver, Phoenix, San Diego, LA, Montana. It was absolutely incredible. I felt like myself again. Like I finally felt for the first time in 2 years like myself again. I was feeling creative. I was feeling excited, inspired. It was amazing. And none of that would have been possible if I hadn't come to terms with my shadow and started doing the work to heal on the most basic root level. So we will talk about shadow work more and how to do it in another episode. I'm not really going to get into that here because I want to talk about some healing modalities. But essentially, that was my journey. That was kind of my spiritual journey. And now I feel like I'm entering this new chapter that is thankfully filled with so much light, so much excitement, launching this podcast, doing so many things that have been on my heart and soul and mind for some time now. And I felt so much flow. I mean, things are flowing. I'm attracting the support that I need. I'm attracting the resources that I need. And I genuinely feel like it's because I went through this deep process of cleansing my physical, emotional, and spiritual body and realigning myself to be able to invite these things in. I was not in a position to call any of this in when I was in such a dark place. But when I healed that, and of course there will be more healing to come, I accept that. I'm at peace with that. But with the healing that I've done, I've finally gotten myself to a place where I'm good. Like I'm finally good. And it feels so good to say that. I can't even tell you guys, like, oh my God, like I worked my ass off for this. I'll be honest. Like I really pulled a 180, like, and I couldn't be happier to be starting this new chapter, talking to you guys and finally getting to do my mission work. So what I would really like to do next is kind of get into the different healing modalities. For some of you that are a little more into this stuff, this may seem a little redundant, but I really want to create a foundation so that when I'm bringing on different people to interview in the coming episodes, that you guys kind of have a basic knowledge of what we're going to be talking about that we can build off of. So the first healing modality that I want to talk about is past life regression. I love past life regression. I'm obsessed with it. I got certified a year and a half ago, and it was so powerful. Past life regression is essentially a facet of hypnotherapy. It uses hypnotherapeutic techniques to help us access our subconscious to heal. What I usually say to people who maybe don't necessarily know if they believe in reincarnation or believe in past lives is, even if you don't, past life regression is a powerful tool because our subconscious speaks to us in metaphors and in symbols and in visions and in so many different ways. And so what happens in a past life regression is we walk you through a guided meditation that triggers your subconscious to bring up what needs to be healed, or cycles that you may be repeating, or different things that are within your shadow and within your subconscious. If you do believe in past life regression, if you do believe in past lives, my personal experience as a believer in reincarnation is that I've actually visually witnessed myself as a different being in a different point of time, and the experiences that and the lessons that I learned or that I'm still having to learn in this lifetime. My very first past life regression experience, which, full disclosure, I didn't know this at the time, but you really shouldn't be practicing past life regression on your own. It really is something that you should be certified in because it uses hypnotherapy, which, just like any kind of therapy in dealing with the subconscious, trauma can come up, different things can come up. And so realistically, you should be working with a trained therapist when you do this. I didn't know that at the time, and I was interested in it, and my friend had said that she was going to walk me through a past life regression, and I was super stoked. And the day that we were going to do it, she got called into work. So I was like, well, hey, like, I kind of want to, try it by myself. I don't know if anything's going to happen, but we'll see. And so she walked me through the steps of the meditation, and I sat down in her living room, and I had the super grounding crystal in my lap, and I went through it. And long story short, I'll probably give you guys the full story when I do a whole episode on past life regression, but I have other stuff I want to cover today. So just to give you guys the quick synopsis, I had a profound experience. Absolutely profound. I was transported literally to another dimension. I was like completely not in my body anymore. I had a super enlightening experience, and I came out of it and I was just like, whoa, like there is something to this. And so a couple years down the line, when I found out that there was such thing as getting certified in past life regression, I knew I had to do it. And since then, I've done multiple sessions myself, as well as sessions with other people, and seen absolutely incredible results. So it's a really powerful tool. It's a really powerful modality. It can give you so much critical insight into patterns that you're repeating, or if there's things that you do and you don't really know why you do them. Fears and phobias are a common reason. Relationships or attracting the same type of partner. There's a lot of different things you can uncover and unearth with past life regression. So it's really amazing. I can't wait to dive into it more with you guys in the future. The next thing I really want to talk about is tarot. And as you guys probably know, I love tarot. It has been such a tool for healing and insight in my life. I first got into tarot back in 2018, and I just dove right in. I wanted to learn everything I could about it. I watched so many YouTube videos. I really just wanted to get fluent in the language that is the tarot, because there's so many elements to it. There's numerology, there's the actual elements, there's the visuals of the cards themselves. And practicing tarot really is a powerful divination tool and way for us to get clarity and insight on the past, on the present, and even a little bit of the future. I don't like to use tarot necessarily as a predictive tool, because the future is always changing based on the decisions that we make, based on external factors. And so it really doesn't make sense to try and use the tarot to like predict the future, because that is always changing. That said, it still is a really powerful tool for insight onto decision making and figuring out your path and reframing situations when you are maybe deciding, your next steps, or kind of figuring out where to go next. So to kind of get a little bit into what is the tarot, from our understanding, it kind of came about in the 15th century as a tool of entertainment. And then around the 18th century, it started being crafted into more of a tool for divination. It was used mostly by the elite in society. There'd be tarot readers at parties and different things like that. And then in recent years, especially, it's kind of experienced this revival, and people have rediscovered tarot. And now there's all these incredible artists creating tarot decks, oracle decks, which is a good point, actually. The difference between tarot and oracle cards are a lot more open. There can be any number of cards in a deck. They usually have different archetypes or messages or affirmations or different things. There's a whole variety of different oracle card decks. Tarot follows a specific structure. So in tarot, there are 56 minor arcana cards and 22 major arcana cards. The minor arcana is based off of 4 different suits. There's 10 cards. It goes from ace to the 10, and then there's 4 face cards. So there's the page, the knight, the queen, and the king. This basically covers the day-to-day things that we face, people in our lives, and different things like that. The major arcana is considered by a lot of people to reflect the journey to enlightenment. It has 22 cards, starting from the Fool, which is card number 0, to the World, which is card number 21. And it goes through this journey of different archetypes that we all embody within us. So we can actually relate to every element of the major arcana at different points in our lives. as I mentioned, there's numerology, there's the elements. So every card is associated with earth or fire or air, oh my gosh, how am I forgetting? Water. So the four elements, and there's just so much you can get into. It's really such a powerful tool. I love it so much. I'll definitely have a tarot reader on here at some point to go a little bit further into that. The next modality I wanted to cover is astrology. I love astrology. I have gotten so into it in recent years. Obviously, it's blown up in our culture. Like pop astrology is all over the place. There's memes, there's different Instagram accounts. People are doing TikTok videos on it. Like it's just huge now. And I'm personally so stoked that it's becoming such a thing because people are really getting into it. And it is such a powerful tool, I believe, for self-compassion, for understanding, and for growth and vision in our lives. Astrology is basically broken up into 8 planets, 12 signs, and 12 houses. The 8 planets are also, in addition, there's asteroids and mathematically calculated points in your chart. So this would be your ascendant and rising sign, your north and south nodes, Chiron, and different things like that. The planets, if you're familiar with Chani Nicholas, she's an incredible resource for astrology. She's probably my favorite doing astrology right now. She's brilliant. And in her book, she actually breaks it down in a really tangible way. She talks about the planets as the who. So basically, who are the actors in the play that is astrology? So out of the planets, there's the personal planets, which are the sun, the moon, Mercury, Venus, and Mars. These planets change for everyone because they have such short orbits around the sun. The interpersonal planets are Jupiter and Saturn. These change a little less frequently because they have such longer orbits. And then you have the generational planets, which are Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. And these people usually in a generation all have the same placement because it takes so long for them to make their transits. So from there, we have the 12 signs of the zodiac. So you're probably familiar with these. I feel like most people usually know their sun sign. I'm a Taurus sun. We're in Aries season right now. So anyone that has a birthday, you're probably in Aries. And the zodiac is beautiful. It is split up by elements. It's also split up by modalities, which is cardinal, fixed, and mutable signs. Again, I'm going to do a little bit more of an in-depth episode on this. There's so much to talk about astrology with. I just wanted to give you guys a quick overview. And then we have the 12 houses, which is like the where. It's like the location where these different things take place. If you look at your astrology chart, the planets are kind of dotted within the chart. The zodiac signs are on the external part of the chart, and then the houses are the numbers that you find on the inside of the chart. There's 12 houses, and they're all essentially like different areas of your life, of society, that you can have these different experiences in. So there's a house for money, there's a house for career, there's a house for relationships, there's a house for family, there's a house for resources and investments. Pretty much any aspect of life, there's a house associated with that aspect of life. So again, there's so much we could get into. I wish I could talk about it all day long. But really what it comes down to with astrology is it's a beautiful tool for self-compassion, for understanding, and for insight. So I suggest downloading the Chani app. There's a lot of great astrology apps out there. I really love Chani Nicholas's app because you get the visual of your zodiac wheel, of your birth chart. And then you also get descriptions of all of the placements and different transits that are happening throughout your chart. So it's a really good way to start to understand your personal chart. And as you do that, you can maybe even move into exploring other people's charts as well. The next modality I really want to talk about is Reiki. Reiki is another modality that requires a certification. It also requires something called an attunement. An attunement is essentially an energetic experience that aligns your chakras and connects you to the Reiki energy. Reiki is a Japanese form of energy healing that uses your hands. And it comes from the Japanese word being rei, which is universal life, and ki, which is energy. It was developed in the 20th century and now has a wide usership. People all around the world use Reiki. I've had really powerful experiences with Reiki. I use it all the time on myself to clear out my different chakras. I will send it to people that need healing. Reiki can be used across any distance. It's not stuck, with the tangible use of your hands. You can actually send it to people, places, and things. So it's a really powerful healing modality. The way that you get certified for Reiki is there's 3 different levels. There's your Reiki 1, your Reiki 2, and then your Reiki 3, which is your master, which allows you to actually teach Reiki and give attunements. In Reiki 1, you essentially learn the hand positions for self-Reiki and for giving Reiki to others, and you kind of get the background on the Reiki principles and the history, and then you get your first attunement, which aligns you with the Reiki energy. Attunements are so powerful. I've had 3. I got Reiki 1 certified a couple years ago, and then I got recertified in Reiki 1 and then certified in Reiki 2 last year, and my attunements were insane. I bawled my eyes out. I released so much. I felt so clear. My chakras felt aligned. I just felt my energy shift. Had visions. It was really a powerful experience. And a lot of the time after that, I noticed a lot of really massive changes happening in my life. I actually got Reiki certified right before this whole crazy shadow work chapter happened. So actually, not to scare you guys, you're going to have a Reiki attunement and then your life's going to fall apart. I don't feel like that's the case for most people. That was kind of what happened to me. And I don't necessarily think that everything that happened had to do with the Reiki attunement, but I do feel like having that attunement put me in a position where I was ready, even though I maybe didn't think that I was ready to go through what I had to go through and do the work that I needed to do to become stronger, to become more aligned, and to come out the other side where I am now, essentially a new person. So Reiki is super powerful. In your Reiki 2, you actually learn the 3 Reiki hand symbols that are used in Reiki healing. So that's super powerful. And then in Reiki 3, you learn 1 additional hand symbol, plus you learn how to teach Reiki and how to give attunements. So I love Reiki. I'll probably do a whole other episode on that as well. It's really incredible. Even if you don't plan on practicing Reiki, I still highly suggest at least getting Reiki 1 certified, because it's such a beautiful energy to be able to tap into. And it's just a great way to do self-healing. And I mean, you can use it for your pets. You can use it for really anyone and anything. So I love Reiki so much. I want to touch briefly on crystal therapy. Again, this is a huge topic, so I don't really want to go too far deep into it. But essentially what crystal therapy is using crystals for their unique energetic vibrations to target certain ailments and to cleanse the chakras. So every crystal, almost every crystal has a chakra that it aligns the most with. Some can be used on different chakras or all of the chakras. But every crystal has a different energetic imprint. Some are really good for shadow work. Some, like selenite, are really good for just cleansing energy overall. The first crystal that I ever purchased for myself was a lepidolite. I got it for social anxiety. I started wearing it regularly, and I genuinely felt the difference. And honestly, whether you believe in crystal energy or not, if you believe in the placebo effect, you're probably going to have a positive experience from using crystals. I suggest using them. I have so many crystals. I believe in their power. I believe in the power of the earth and the formation process that crystals have to go through to become what they are is so powerful that to me it makes sense that they would carry this unique energetic imprint from the earth that benefits our bodies. You know, the earth gives us everything that we need for sustenance, for healing, plant medicine, everything. I feel like we can really get everything that we need from the earth. And I feel like crystals are a really powerful tool from that. I would suggest, if you're interested in getting your first crystal, in going to a crystal shop. You can order crystals online, but I feel like it's really so much more impressionable to have the experience of looking at all the different crystals. Most shops usually have cards for the crystals where it tells what their different healing elements are, as well as what they can be used for, or what they're most noted to be used for. So I really like going through and seeing all the different ones. I like holding them. I like feeling how they resonate with me, and really just having that experience. So I really suggest going into a crystal shop if you can to find your first crystal. The next thing I really want to talk about is the Akashic Records. The Akashic Records are absolutely incredible. This can be associated with past life regression. The Akashic Records are essentially the idea that every thought, word, and action created by a living being is recorded somewhere in the realm of the ethers. The word Akasha actually comes from a Sanskrit word that means astral light, and the belief is that there is a certain dimension or etheric place that keeps record of every single soul's existence through lifetimes, which is kind of mind-blowing to think about. It's like seriously mind-blowing to think about, but it's actually really interesting because there's even reference to the Akashic Records in a lot of religious texts, including the Old Testament of the Bible. The Akashic Records have been spoken about through different cultures around the world for centuries, probably longer, like thousands of years. We've had an idea of the existence of this space. I like to think of the Akashic Records as a cosmic computer system, or a sort of like soul library. A lot of times when accessing the Akashic Records, people will visualize it as a library. And essentially what you do with the Akashic Records is you can go into that space with an intention of understanding, similar to past life regression, a certain cycle that you're stuck in, reasons why you do certain things, reasons why certain things have happened. You can understand certain relationships in your life, maybe even see what other lifetimes you had with a specific person that might shed light on your experience with them in this lifetime. I mean, it's literally all the information ever created by any living being in the universe. So pretty much anything that you have questions about, there's an answer somewhere in the Akashic Records. I've tapped into the Akashic Records myself. I am working on learning how to do it a little bit more fluently because I really want to offer Akashic Records readings for people as a energy and soul healing modality. But if you are interested in learning more about the Akashic Records, Debbie Ritter and Linda Howe are really powerful women in that space. Linda Howe wrote a book called How to Read the Akashic Records, Accessing the Archive of the Soul and Its Journey. Amazing book. That's how I learned to access the Akashic Records. It's really powerful. She walks you through the whole process, and it's actually a lot simpler than you would anticipate. It really comes down to clearing yourself as a channel and getting aligned to be able to access that. We just covered a lot of information, so definitely take the time to digest and integrate. We'll be going deeper into all of these topics, but feel free to DM me on Instagram as well if you have any questions or thoughts that you want to share. I hope you enjoyed hearing my journey. Shadow work is a gnarly ride, but I'm here to support you and be a resource. So please reach out. I'm going to be talking a lot more about shadow work in future episodes. So there'll be a lot more to work with, but I hope that this at least got you thinking and wondering how you can begin your shadow work journey if you haven't already. I've gone through a lot, so I'm pretty well versed in the shadow work space, and it's so important to our experience and growth as spiritual beings and as humans. New episodes drop every week, so subscribe to be notified. And if this episode resonated with you, I would love it so much if you would leave a rating and a review. It will really help as this podcast begins to grow. I will be doing a fun little giveaway, and I'll be giving away a free one-to-one tarot reading with me. So if you want to enter, screenshot your rating and review and email it to me at ALLEE@cosmicandwild.co. I hope you guys really enjoyed today. I can't wait to share the next episode with you guys. If you want to reach out, like I said, hit me up on Instagram at ALLEEWild or email me at ALLEE@cosmicandwild.co.